All right, gather round the campfire, everyone. Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story that might surprise you. It's about Napoleon Bonaparte, one of history's most famous military leaders, and the surprising claim that he never actually started a war. Now, that might sound strange given his reputation, but let's dive into the details. Napoleon Bonaparte, born in 1769 on the island of Corsica, rose to prominence during the French Revolution. By 1799, he had become the first consul of France, and in 1804, he crowned himself emperor. Over the years, Napoleon became synonymous with war and conquest, leading his armies across Europe in a series of campaigns known collectively as the Napoleonic Wars. But here's where things get interesting. While Napoleon was certainly involved in many wars, the argument can be made that he didn't actually start them. To understand this, we need to look at the context of each conflict. Let's start with the War of the First Coalition, 1792 to 1797. Napoleon wasn't even in a position of power when this war began. The conflict was initiated by the revolutionary French government, which was under threat from various European monarchies that feared the spread of revolutionary ideas. Napoleon rose to prominence during this war, particularly with his victories in Italy, but he didn't start it. Next, we have the War of the Second Coalition, 1798 to 1802. Again, Napoleon didn't start this conflict. It was largely a continuation of hostilities from the First Coalition, with European powers like Britain, Austria, and Russia attempting to contain the French Republic's influence. Napoleon was busy in Egypt when the Second Coalition was formed, and by the time he returned to France, he seized power in a coup, the 18 Brumaire, and sought peace, leading to the Treaty of Amiens in 1802. The peace was short-lived, and the War of the Third Coalition, 1805, soon followed. This war began when Britain, Austria, Russia, and others formed a coalition against Napoleon's France, fearing his growing power and influence. Napoleon didn't start this war, he responded to the coalition's threat. His brilliant victory at the Battle of Austerlitz is well remembered, but it was a defensive maneuver against an aggressive alliance. Then there's the War of the Fourth Coalition, 1806 to 1807. Similar to the previous coalitions, this was formed by European powers, including Prussia and Russia, who were alarmed by Napoleon's dominance after the dissolution of the Holy Roman Empire and his establishment of the Confederation of the Rhine. Napoleon again found himself reacting to the aggression of the coalition rather than initiating conflict. The War of the Fifth Coalition, 1809, followed a similar pattern. Austria, feeling humiliated after previous defeats and seeing Napoleon engaged in Spain, saw an opportunity to strike. The Austrians initiated hostilities, and Napoleon had to respond, leading to his victory at the Battle of Wagram. The Peninsular War, 1808 to 1814, often comes up as an example where Napoleon could be seen as the aggressor. While it's true that French forces invaded Spain and Portugal, the initial conflict began with the destabilization of the Spanish monarchy and a complex series of political maneuvers, including the abdication of the Spanish king. Napoleon placed his brother Joseph on the Spanish throne, leading to a protracted and brutal conflict. While his actions here were aggressive, they were part of his broader strategy to secure France's southwestern flank against British influence. The War of the Sixth Coalition, 1812 to 1814, saw a broad alliance, including Russia, Prussia, Austria, and Britain, once again arrayed against Napoleon. This coalition was formed in response to Napoleon's failed invasion of Russia in 1812. His invasion of Russia is often seen as an act of aggression, but it was also a preemptive move to enforce his continental system, an economic blockade against Britain, which Russia had violated. Napoleon's disastrous campaign led to a united Europe against him. Finally, we come to the War of the Seventh Coalition, also known as the 100 Days, in 1815. After escaping from exile on Elba, Napoleon returned to France and regained power. The European powers, which had restored the Bourbon monarchy, immediately declared war on him. The Battle of Waterloo was the decisive conflict, where Napoleon was ultimately defeated. Once again, it was the European powers who declared war, not Napoleon.